we thought they were interesting for people to see, but we couldn't otherwise figure out how to fit into the agenda. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these. Now, the way this system is going to work is I'm going to be a Nazi about time. Everybody gets 10 minutes. That can include Q&A if you like or not. And that'll be up to the presenter. So the first person in the queue is Arnold. He's going to tell us about PeeringDB and what the latest is. Arnold, come on up.
Hello, I'm Arnold from PeeringDB. So please bring up the slides. So I have a short update on PeeringDB. So basically, first thing, whenever you have an ASN, that means a network, or you run an internet exchange, or you have a facility that means a collocation, please sign up with PeeringDB. That's the most important, I really have to say. So what is PeeringDB? Or perhaps it would be better to term it interconnection DB. If you want, as a network, if you want to peer, of course, you need, first of all, information about your other peers. This is the networks which are in PeeringDB, but that's not enough. You also need information about the exchange point. These are the points where you do public peering. And then, of course, you also need information about the facilities. This is where you perhaps also do private peering. And this information is nicely fit together in PeeringDB and interconnected so that you are easily able to find the information. This boasts via a graphical user interface, but we also have a powerful API. So meanwhile, PeeringDB is also an association, and you find the information here, how to become a member of this information, and also to be part of the governance of PeeringDB. We have a board which comes together once a month, but the day-to-day work is done by the 4 committees. These are the admin committees, the operations committee, and the outreach committee and product committee. So the admin committee, more or less, is our support department. Operation is the guys who run the infrastructure. Outreach committee takes care of events, produces the slides, and so on and so on. And the product committee basically really takes care of the development of PeeringDB. You as a user are able to give input, both to report bugs, as well as if you have feature requests, simply go to our GitHub, file an issue, and the product committee will take care of that. This is an statistics, how we did. So in 2016, March 2016, PeeringDB 2.0 was brought out, and you see how well it was received. PeeringDB, the use of PeeringDB, registering for PeeringDB is absolutely for free. Still, there are costs involved, and the costs are recovered on a 100% sponsorship basis. We have different sponsorship levels, and if you are interested to become a sponsor, please contact sponsorship@peeringdb.com. These are our valued sponsors, and what the board of PeeringDB did is we come together once a year on a full day to set the strategic direction for the present year and the upcoming year. And this is what we did this year in March. First of all, of course, is that PeeringDB has to be, or what we would like to do is to ensure reliability, security, support of PeeringDB services. We take care that PeeringDB not only is available this year, but also the year after this year. So that means we also have to take care that there is proper funding. We have to want to develop and enhance functionality of PeeringDB services, and also to spread the word. This is more or less what I already talked about. We want to strengthen relationship with other stakeholders in the community. These are the tasks for 2018. The feature planning process is working well. I already told about the product committee. The product committee is scheduling the issues, and then we have a main developer so far, this is 20C, which works on the development of a new version. And roughly every 1 to 2 months, we put out a new version. We also have a beta site where we first test our version, and then on a fixed date, we roll out the new release. So far this year, we have rolled out 4 new releases. To mention perhaps is that we currently, with the latest version or the version before, we also support internationalization of PeeringDB, which I personally find very useful. Until then, PeeringDB was only available in English. Meanwhile, it's also available in Portuguese, and we are working on other languages as well. And I guess for the African region, of course, the most important language besides English would be French. And as far as I know, there are also people working on a French version. This is not so important. These are really minor issues. What you also want to do is to make the source code of PeeringDB public source. Therefore, we did a security audit, fixes some minor issues with the source code, and hopefully we will be able to make the source code available this year. The reason for is that this gives developers the opportunity to work on the code, to send in patches, improvements on their own, and don't have to wait for the GitHub issues they have sent in. I already talked about the internationalization support. Once you have logged in, you are able to choose the language you want to work in. And these are more information on PeeringDB. And then I'm through. Questions? Remarks? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. Please leave the translation devices behind. There's one that's gone missing, so just a reminder, don't take them home with you. They don't work anyway, if you do. Next up, we have Andy Davidson with the IXPDB project. Please, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. 10 minutes. Okay. So my name's Andy Davidson. I work for a company called Asteroid. We're an Internet Exchange Point operator. I also volunteer for the European Internet Exchange Association, which is the European version of AFIX, the association that supports the work done by Internet Exchange Points in this region. And I also sit on the, for the last few months, on the IXF board. I just want to give you a quick update on the work of the IXF and talk about the IXF. Internet Exchange Associations are non-profit groups made of Internet Exchange Points who collaborate to share work. So if we all want to do some work on route server improvements or testing, or we want to do some work to document best practices, etc., we can do this within the framework of the association, and all IXPs in that region can benefit. Now, so that all IXPs in the world can benefit, the associations work together through the IXF to share knowledge and information and projects at a global level. So ideally, it would mean that the work that is done and published and contributed to in one region through an IX association is available to everybody who's a member of their local IX association. And together, there are 4 IX associations in the world. They're spread over, there's a map showing where in a moment. The IXP Federation also provides a central resource for IXP-related data, research, as well as best common practices. And it's this central repository for data, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about today as well. The IXF was created when an MOU was signed between APIX in Asia, EuroIX, and LACIX in the Latin America region in 2012. And we're pleased to say that AFIX joined in 2014. So there are 4 IXPAs representing 145 internet exchange points across 6 continents. The work that's being done at a local level and contributed to the IXF, in EuroIX, a lot of the work we're doing is leading the development of the IXP database, which I'll talk about in a moment, and creating and publishing tools for analysis of internet exchange point data via our website. We hold 2 forums a year where internet exchange points come together to discuss our work, share knowledge, share technical research, share information to make internet exchange points more reliable and available and good for our peering network members and customers. And the next one is going to be held in November in Venice, Italy. If you're an internet exchange point and interested in joining, but you're not a EuroIX member, maybe have a word with me, and I can maybe send you some information about schemes we have for outreach to internet exchange points to try and encourage you to become a member, but support your attendance. APIX are working on their 2nd Peering Asia meeting, which is very much like the AFPIF meeting, but focused on the Asia region. And AFIX, the group are working towards the formalization of the association as an entity, and the transitioning of this very, very splendid peering meeting to the stewardship of the AFIX. And in LACIX region, they are working on also a peering forum, and also working on some regulatory topics as well. Now, the IXP database is a system for collecting data directly from internet exchange points and then publishing it so that there's a set of information, a resource by which peering networks, researchers and users can find information about the public peering world in one place. And the project sponsored by EuroIX, LACIX, APNIC, KZNNOG, one of the exchange points in Europe, and the Internet Society. Now, the IXP database is an old project. It used to be what we call the EuroIX database, which has existed since 2001, when the association started. But it holds information about internet exchange points around the world, and it doesn't make sense for it to have a regional name. So it's renamed now the IXF database, or the IXP database. IXP's, the project had a new lease of life in 2014 when we organized a hackathon in the city where I live, Sheffield, together with PeeringDB, where we worked to clean up the data in both databases about public exchange points. And then we did some work to extend the API to that data and the tools built around that data, first of all to 20C, the developers of the PeeringDB database, and it's now brought more in-house to an exchange point in our region, INX-ZA. The details of the project is that it's a single repository for IXP data. So data on the members who are connected to the IXPs, but traffic statistics, and also more data about the things that the IXPs put together. We then publish that data to the world so that researchers and networks can get information about the scene as a whole. Data is collected automatically from IXPs in a JSON schema, which I'll explain at the end. So an IXP can publish information about who's connected and how it's hung together automatically, and the IXP database collects that data and puts it in the database and makes it available on a global basis. If you use the open source tool IXP Manager, or you're an Asteroid customer, that is generated automatically. The JSON schema is published about your IXP automatically. The JSON schema, I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more detail in a moment, but not exceed my 10 minutes. It's the live database. The database and the API, the tools are live. IXPs can pick which level of exposure they want. If IXPs don't want to publish to the world information about their switch hardware, etc., they don't have to. The fields are optional. IXPAs can add new IXPs to their region and other admins. And you can see there are new features added like aggregated traffic data and the geolocation of where internet exchange points are. So you can look to see if there are exchange points near you or in a region that you're trying to explore for building your network to by looking at a map. And here's an example. If you go to the IXPDB.net website, you can see tools like the aggregated data and see information about which switches are the most popular, which route servers are the most popular, which networks connect to the most internet exchange points and things like that. And you can also see which IXPs provide the information to us automatically, because the benefit of providing the data to us automatically via JSON export is that the data stays up to date without human involvement. The IXP database is at IXPDB.net. It's a work in progress. It improves all the time, and we love your feedback. You can provide that feedback via the public mailing list, which you're welcome to join, and an API if you want to build a tool against this. And it's really, really smart to use both PeeringDB and IXPDB to verify information about networks that you're trying to connect to. So if you're building a tool that automates the building of peering sessions, if you're really smart, you'll use PeeringDB and IXPDB in order to see the total picture of how you can connect to that network, see information about the facilities they're in via PeeringDB, but also the data about how they connect to the IX from the IX, so you get an entire complete picture. The JSON schema, if you're interested in understanding the JSON schema that IXs publish, that's defined on this GitHub page in the YourIX account. If you Google YourIX JSON schema, you'll see this document which describes, or you'll see the history of the document that describes how the JSON schema has evolved, as well as a full description on how to publish information about your IXP to us and to the world at large. There's very, very wide adoption. There's already over 50 IXPs that are using the JSON schema. So if you're looking for information on IXPs, understanding and consuming that data gives you a wide view that's all automatic and therefore up to date about the peering world at large. And there's a simple, well understood format. Here's a screenshot that's probably a little bit small to see, but it's a fragment of the screenshot of an IXP that we run in Europe, which details who's connected. And you can use that to get great information that's updated in real time by the IX, by our system, so it's always up to date. There are future uses of this. Peering networks can use this for automated session establishment and working out where to build a network to get peering. It can also be used by IXPs to configure services. So there are tools like a route server configuration tool that uses the JSON schema as its config file. So if you keep your database up to date, your tools can keep up to date because it's all done in one place and it's all automatically updated. The presentation's available to download if you want to see and go through this in more detail and click through the links to see. I maybe have 3.5 seconds left to take any questions, but you can always grab me outside or send me an email. Done. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have an INX-ZA update from, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the name, Riaan Vos. Riaan.
Hello guys, Riaan Vos again. Just going to give you a quick update on INX-ZA. You know, it has been mentioned already, is the oldest running exchange, JINX, on the African continent. 100% uptime, 100% community driven. What the community is asking us is what we're going to do. So, what is INX multi-site? This is one of the things we've been doing. Exchange being extended to different sites within the same region. Quite nice, but the question more is, why are we doing that? Why have we decided to do that? The answer is quite the community So, and then quite interesting with all of these multi-sites, as we call it, what are the experience that we do have with them? As you can see, things being noted there. Not all data centers are created equally. Some people might say some DCs are more equal than others. Cannot be the case. From our perspective, as I've noted down on the presentation, some DCs are easier to work with than others. Cross-connect prices, yeah, that's a very interesting topic. Some of them are very cheap, some of them are very expensive. So it's quite, yeah, the variation between them is quite significant. On top of that, some data centers are very happy to have Exchange inside the environment. Other data centers are looking for excuses to delay things. They are looking for excuses to make it just difficult to have Exchange inside their facilities. Some of the DC operators do charge a co-location fee. Others don't. It's part of the thing to make things, let's just say, more difficult to have a presence there. I wanted to talk, well, let's try again. So connecting the sites. Bandwidth, yeah, it's still expensive. In my view, more expensive than what it used to be. Someone needs to pay for that. This is been covered by a portion of the port fees that INX-ZA is charging the participants to connect to the exchange. While we did talk about the specific port fees. The port fees are used to cover a number of things, not mentioned on a specific slide, but INX-ZA does have of the employee at this point in time that those port fees are covering that individual's salary. Equipment needs to be bought, port fees are still covering for that. In a way, INX-ZA is running a very lean operation, given the fact that what they are doing, not bad at all. As a matter of fact, it's very good. On top of that, also workshops been done. Workshops in Joburg, workshops in Cape Town, and also in Durban. There are significant costs for that. Someone needs to pay for accommodation, someone needs to pay for the flights, and the port fees are also covering that. Which has been mentioned earlier this week, INX-ZA is working with the participants to clean up a number of the advertisements being done. This used to be manually. The guys are busy getting into a more automated fashion. The root server filtering is what I'm to refer to there. Yeah, that's a very rough update. Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next up, we have Nico. Nico is going to tell us what's happening at KINIX in DRC. And it's just a quick note, this presentation, the slides will be in English, but Nico will speak in French. So prepare yourselves. Whoa.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Nous allons, avant de partager cette expérience de point d'échange de Kinshasa, admirer les deux images. La première image est là. La deuxième image est là. Je m'appelle Nico Tshintu, je viens de la République démocratique du Congo. Je suis le chargé des opérations de point d'échange de Kinshasa, qu'on appelle KINIX. Les deux images que vous venez de voir retracent l'histoire qu'a connue le point d'échange de Kinshasa dans l'espace de 3 mois. En fait, qu'est-ce qui s'était passé? En novembre 2017, la salle de KINIX a connu un incendie. Cet incendie était dû à une faille d'électricité, aidée par le chemin des câbles du point d'échange de Kinshasa, qui était en matière plastique. Vous-même, vous connaissez la matière plastique. Ça aide facilement le feu à se propager. Et ça fait que le point d'échange de Kinshasa s'est arrêté. Mais après cette information, il y a eu une solidarité qui s'est dégagée au niveau des organes de ISPA, c'est-à-dire au niveau du comité de gestion, au niveau du conseil d'administration. Ils se sont mobilisés pour un seul objectif, c'était de remettre au plus vite possible les points d'échange de Kinshasa en marche. Et là, avec des moyens précaires, premièrement, ces deux événements ont freiné en quelque sorte l'élan de croissance de points d'échange. Avec les moyens de bord, on ne pouvait pas faire face facilement à cet incident. Qu'est-ce qu'il fallait? Il fallait recourir aux membres, qu'ils donnent les dons en espèces et qu'ils donnent aussi en nature pour pouvoir remettre le point d'échange de Kinshasa en marche. C'est ce qui a été fait. Il n'y a pas eu de timing. On s'est dit, mettons-nous avec les moyens de bord. Ceux qui ont de l'argent, ils donnent. Ceux qui ont les équipements, ils donnent. Et cela a été fait dans 21 jours. Nous avons pu le faire et nous avons informé aussi.
Once this was done, we have informed outside partners like the point of exchange in Romania, who helped us with its participation with donations and thanks to their members. But this was not enough. 3 months later, in February 2018, one of our partners, where we were hosting our point of exchange, asked us to move. It wasn't planned because normally we should have been advised 6 months prior, but they asked us to move within 2 months. Obviously, this was difficult for our association, and we had to move our point of exchange as fast as possible. Once again, there was a solidarity with our members, and this solidarity has helped us, and everybody got together in order to find a solution. Within the time, we had 2 months, but time had effectively, we had expected to have 48 days, but we didn't have 48 days. We were ahead in our time. So thanks to the solidarity of our members, we have managed to do this, and not in 48 days, but this time in 63 days. We obviously needed money. We didn't have any money. We had once again to ask our members. They did cash donations. Some have mobilized personnel, and thanks with their help, we have managed to do what we call quite quickly, but obviously quite quickly in terms of telecommunication, it's not very fast, because we had this enormous challenge in terms to bring back all our operators in our old site and bring them into our new site. Obviously, that wasn't easy, but once again, I'm going to talk about solidarity, and we managed to do this. We still had problems, like in terms of deployment. Like I just said, we didn't have enough money, and the timing was an issue. We had another calendar. As I said, the calendar was 43 days, and we've done it in 62 days. Why? You can read on the slides. because I don't have enough time to explain to you all in detail. From those two experiences, we have gathered lessons. The first lessons was, in terms of fire, we must respect the standards in our point of exchange. Our cables were in plastic, which led that we had a massive fire. If we had metal cables, I believe we would not have had such enormous fires like we had in Kinshasa. The second point was to have a standard electrical installation, because we had a very old electric installation. We did what we could at the time, and we paid the cost. We also need to have an anti-fire system with alarms, which we didn't have at the time. We had nothing, which meant that to extinguish the fire, we didn't even have the means. Personally, I was in my office. I didn't even know that we had a fire. My office was on the 4th floor, and the point of exchange was on the 18th floor. When I came out of the office, I saw the personnel who told me we can smell fire on the 16th level or 17th level, but we're not sure where the fire has started. Immediately, I went up. I arrived in front of our room, and I realized it was KINIX room who was on fire. I opened the room, I saw the fire, and I had to extinguish it the way I could. In less than 5 minutes, I managed to extinguish the fire. We had lost one engine and one EPS. The rest was saved, but in order to not have this repeating itself in the future, our new point of exchange must make an effort and respect these standards of security. For us, in order in future to have those results, to have those securities, would be to have a point of exchange, to have our point of exchange in a data center, because there is personnel 24/7, and this would not happen again. Once again, actually, because we're not in a data center, this is what our point of exchange looks like. Thank you very much.
One question? No questions?
Good.
Yes.
Good. Hi, Nish, I'll go with that. Packet Clearing House. Nico will understand me. Nico, I want to say congratulations. I want to say congratulations. Because none of what you've done would have happened if you had not taken the time and effort to build a community to support you through your crisis. If you had not taken the time and effort to build a community, you would not have a community to go to ask, to say, please, can you give us equipment? Please, can you help us with fundraising to get all of this done? And I think that message may not have gotten clearly across. So congratulations. And I think it underlines something that those of us that have been in this industry for a while knows, that no exchange can survive without a community. So it's not really a question, more just a congratulatory note. Of course, we never ever want to see this sort of thing happen, ever, to anybody. But if you do run into a problem like that, you're very welcome to reach out to myself at PCH or any of our colleagues, and we'll happily send you equipment, free of charge, no questions asked. Again, good.
Let's do this one. All right, so next up was supposed to be lessons learned, typical African IXPs by Emmanuel from Ghana, but I don't think Emmanuel is here. So the next would be growing the community, the KZNNOG experience, and I think that's with Ed. Yes.
Cool. Perfect. I've got it short. Where's the clicker? Can I get? Sorry, just trying to get the presentation. Okay, well, I'll start while we. Okay, well, we've got time. I'd like to keep you as friends. Yeah, for those who don't know me, my name's Ed. I'm a slayer of fine whiskies and a lover of ridiculous, awesome adventures, and a sucker for various committees. I'd like to ask a question of all of you. How many of you know your neighbor, the one at home, or the person sitting next to you, even though just know their name, or someone 2 steps down from you, or at the end of the row, or the end of your street? Greet them if you don't. Introduce yourselves, because many of us try and avoid that these days. Communities, as we know it, have drastically changed. Our walls have gotten higher, and our friendliness and patience less. I admit that I don't know my neighbors at home, mostly because, well, I moved a month ago, and, well, I've been away more than I've been at home. So, yeah. My downtimes are spent usually with an art crowd, or water sports people, or, well, with people like yourselves, keyboard crusaders. Being the sucker that I am, I land up on committees en masse, and I seem to enjoy it. At least I think I do. Anything from committees that have been here for 120 years, right down to new organizations. So we started the KZNNOG after a training session was held in Durban, hosted by INX-ZA. This was the first real get-together we had in Durban. Since the local Linux user group went quiet, the programmer's art went the way of the dodo, the first hackerspace in South Africa, which never quite had a space, which meant eventually people lost interest, and thus our local community was in quite dire states. I think we, like many small communities, one of our biggest challenges also were the fact that your brightest minds end up going abroad or to bigger cities, or in our case in Durban, most of them go to the big traffic jam known as Johannesburg. So with some gentle nudging, we agreed we'd start a regular gathering, and things just flew from there. Our ideas were having more meet space get-togethers. This would reduce our problems of everyone migrating regularly. So we clearly had people interested. We just needed to get them together. And so the couple of brave pioneers got going. Due to my affiliation with the Point Yacht Club, I had access to a very cost-effective venue, along with the cold, golden, frothy stuff from a tap that seemed tech communities run on, along with some snacks and fast Wi-Fi. Squire Donald over there, and I got the ball rolling with some feedback from last year's AFPIF in, I think it was in Dar, Abidjan. And I stole a talk from NNOG. And not long after that, we got together a wiki, a website and mailing list, and, well, it looked a bit grown up. We even landed our first sponsors once word got out what we were doing. AdRec, thank you to CCOM for getting on board first. It helped a lot. And then from there, things just grew rapidly. We've now got sponsors signed up for the next 2 years as people crawl out of the woodwork as they see something happens that they enjoy. As Durban lacked an abundance of interested speakers, we borrowed speakers from elsewhere, like, whoops, where's this? Have I lost my, yes. Like Marty from Cloudflare in this photo, and he ended up doing a remote talk, which brings a bit of interesting spice to the works. As long as you forget to either as long as you don't forget to plug in your laptop or make sure the battery's full, it tends to work brilliantly. In our case, halfway through, Marty went blank, and, well, some embarrassing moments ensued. Probably the biggest benefit from these get-togethers was we grew the peering community in Durban. The local internet exchange, DINX, grew by a factor of 30, as it was, well, mostly ignored by people. There were many operators who were in Durban who believed there's no point in peering here, everything's in Joburg. So they'd backhaul everything up. So we got the point across that peering is important. Even though DINX is free, or in the case of if you were at Terrico, you could peer at NAP Africa also for free, but they still wouldn't do that. From the onset, we realized there was a definite need for workshops and training sessions. So we partnered with INX-ZA for our first training session about, I think, 3 months ago or so. And next week, we'll be doing our next one. We quickly learned that the pressures of life meant people could not actually come for extended periods. So we've squeezed our training sessions into little half-day slots, so more and more people can attend them without getting too much grief from the bean counters. One of the routes to a long-lasting community organization like this is believing in volunteerism. I don't know if that's an actual word, but it is to me. Organizations like this have to stay community run, and it can't be done by just one person. If not, it will be a one-way road to failure. This isn't Hollywood or Facebook where everything is always perfect and happy. It is inevitable that life will happen. Some people will move away. People would get jobs or a family. So you can't rely on a single person. So it needs to be spread out. So with us having started our basic community in Durban and it growing rapidly, we'd encourage everyone out there to start their own. It is simpler than you think, and it grows and benefits everyone. And yeah, it grows peering. So please go out there and start your own NOGs. Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Cool. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And finally, the last talk, I think, is by Martin Winter. And he's going to talk about FR routing, I believe.
Look at the slides. Let's see if we can get the slides up too. You don't have slides? I mailed it multiple times. Okay. Maybe you can. You have them somehow. Okay, let me start while he's getting his slides together. So FR routing, I just want to give a quick overview on the status. I'm not sure how many here know what FR routing is or the FRR. It's an open source routing stack. It's not the full router, it's the routing stack. So it's just the routing protocols. You still need forwarding, which can be a Linux box. It could be a distributed switch or something else. There are multiple platforms. It implements all the different routing protocols, so RIP, RIP-NG, OSPF, V2, V3, obviously, ISIS, BGP, PIM, LDP with the MPLS there, NHRP, so Next Hop Routing Protocol, Babel, EIGRP, now we're adding BFD and everything else. It's a fork of Quagga. We started that fork a year ago, basically April last year. And it's basically something we tried to change a few things around. It works on Linux and many BSD-like systems. So it's FreeBSD, OpenBSD, NetBSD, all the different versions of Linux. And it's used by many cloud providers. So, and also many white box systems there. If you would have slides, you could show a little bit who is behind the thing. Maybe there's some magic happening now. Or maybe not. Okay, so let's, maybe not matching. Okay, not yet. Ooh, maybe it is. Okay, let's go on. We can get back to this unless, Yeah. So what's different on it, on the FR routing, we wanted to change something. A lot of us in the community were not happy how Quagga was doing. We wanted something with more methodological, like vetting of the submissions. We wanted way more CI integration, automate things, because the development on Quagga was a bit too slow. That's why the whole fork started. And as you may know, forks start when not everyone in the community agrees. So where you split things. Everything is centered on GitHub, everything with pull request. We have like the common assets, like trademarks and everything are held by the Linux Foundation. So if there is ever a fight, there are the arbiter on it. So what happened since the fork? Basically, we started the fork when Quagga had about 4,000 commits in Git. When we came out with the first version, we called it the 2.0 versions in April last year. That had already about 6,500 commits. So we did a lot of changes and fixing there, which were back there. Now we are around close to 13,000 commits. So we just processed about early of this August, the 2,000 pull requests on it. So on average, we do about 4 pull requests on Git. So we have it felt a little bit like we opened up the floodgates. We have tons of contributions from everywhere. So there is a lot of features coming in constantly there. So it's very active community. Everyone is welcome. There isn't really there. We have a set of maintainers. There are about, I think, about 15 maintainers, and we have a fixed set of 6 steering committee members. As a disclaimer, I'm one of maintainer and steering committee members there too. So what happened since the fork? 2.0 version. As I say, we called it 2.0 because Quagga was 1.0 at that time when it came out. In 2.0 version, April 2017, we implemented new features like unnumbered support for most protocols, so BGP unnumbered, OSPF unnumbered, all these things. We added LDP, IPv4, IPv6. It works with the Linux MPLS stack and also works with OpenBSD, the MPLS in there. We added the VRF Lite in there. We added JSON output support. Then the 3.0 version came out October last year. We added PHP VPNs, EVPN support. We added the PIM sparse mode, the SSM mode we already had before. We added the next hop resolution protocol. Then, there is like who's behind the fork. A few of the companies who are waiting to admit. If you're using it and want your logo up there too on the website, let us know. If you can move forward to about 2 slides. Okay. Ooh. Sorry, here. So on the version 4, which came out in March this year, we added basically BGP RPKI. Not sure anyone here is using it, but there was a lot of it. We added more BGP EVPN. There we added BGP MPLS, Ethernet. There a multicast, Babel routing protocol was added. EIGRP, because some people still can't get off from it. Some people like it. Then further on in version 4, we added static VRFs there, like route leaking. We had also segment routing in OSPF initially there. Then in the 5.0 version, which came out in July, we added some PIM multicast trace stuff there. We added the ISIS 3-way handshake, something quite a bit needed for a lot of ISIS development going on in the community, especially also in development. We did a lot more PHP VPN VRF route leaking. PHP VRF with net namespace. So the original PHP VRF was using the VRF from Linux. The problem is that requires a 4.5 kernel or something like that. And many people don't have it. They use older hardware, which only has 3-point-something kernel. So we added the namespace support for VRF as well. We also have a policy-based routing daemon, a new one, which we added in there. And the next version, we are just about in a week, we are basically starting with the first early releases or like beta testing or something, where it's what we expect in there is the BFD daemon, which should be in there. It is BFD with the connections to the routing protocol. We should have OpenFabric support in there. OpenFabric is a new protocol for very large, basically it's based on ISIS. It's a new draft in the IETF community. Those very large data center areas is being used there. We also had improvements on static routes, which was like cleaned up there. The ISIS source destination routing is in there too, and probably tons of more. These are just some of the major highlights. Packages, obviously, we provide packages for many different platforms. There are not yet most of them in the official repository. That takes a bit more time. Some of them are not that easy to get in, especially in older versions, and on network, a lot of people use older OSs. FreeBSD, it's in the official ports. And some of the other ones, we have build instructions and sometimes other ones who help us providing the ports. And that's basically it. Here are the main URL, the web page, GitHub there. I say everyone is welcome. There's a mailing list too. There's also a Slack channel. Unfortunately, it requires an invite. Join the mailing list, send the request you want an invite, and we'll add you on there on the Slack channel too, which most people hang out. There are about 20, 25 people active, working full-time on it, so it's a very active community. We have also weekly conference calls where everyone is welcome to discuss all the open issues and all the everything there what needs to be reviewed. Okay, that's it. Questions, if I have time?
Yeah, so Kevin Chege from ISOC. So we, as Internet Society, we do a lot of, excuse me, online trainings, and I tried FRR routing because we wanted to do a routing lab to teach people routing on the lab. It worked very well. It installed on FreeBSD, but I wanted to ask, is there a way to make this work inside FreeBSD jails so that you can virtualize several FRR instances in one machine? Or is there a way to virtualize several routers? And
you asking
yeah.
FreeBSD, which I'm not an expert on it. On Linux, I know for testing, we have like a framework which we developed in parallel, which is called Topper Tests, where we simulate whole topology based with Mininet and things. There is also on Linux project Boeing Core, if you heard about it, which is from Boeing, the airline company, and they're basically who does some of these things, but that's again, it's Linux based. On FreeBSD, I'm sorry, I don't know that much.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. And a big round of applause for all of our lightning talk speakers.